Hi, I'm Carol Ahles, a teacher with the Smocking Arts Guild of America. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the pin stitch, originally called the Parisian hem stitch or Point de Paris, different names for the same stitch. When I first started teaching hem stitching on the sewing machine in the early 80s, there were just a very few machines that had this stitch. Machines now have lots of different versions of this because this particular stitch can be a buttonhole or blanket stitch also with different thread, different needles. But what we want to use in the way that we make it look like a pin stitch or a Point de Paris is, this is my favorite stitch pattern of it. It would go forward and back several times and once to the side and back. We want these holes to be the big holes that show. We don't want any hole to show over here. But what this does is when it swings over, it can catch lace, or catch a trim, or catch a hem, or catch an applique. And so it's so useful for us. I would rather not have several swings to the side because then the thread builds up. We want the hole to show, but not the thread in most cases for this. So we use a very fine thread. This is Madeira 80 weight cotton thread, and that's the ideal thread. But there are other heirloom threads, as long as they're very fine cotton thread. A really fun finish that the smockers and heirloom sewers, but really everyone likes, is having a handkerchief edge. So we'll do the narrow hem first, and then we're going to go over it with a pin stitch and a large universal needle to make the holes. And look how pretty that looks. Okay, on some machines you can get the pin stitch to align automatically with some narrow hemmers. But an easy way is to just do the narrow hem first, then do the pin stitch over it. For pin stitching, your fabric needs to be appropriate for using that big needle. Like most hem stitching, cotton or linen, a loose woven cotton or linen, and you need to starch it. You may want to not have it too thick, the starch, because it may make it hard to fold it over if it's too stiff. But I'm going to start a little ways from the edge. And I'm using a contrasting thread so it shows. Of course, you would use a matching thread so you could see the holes. And usually light colors are better to see the holes when we get to the pin stitch as you're planning here. Okay, so I'm going to take a couple of stitches. I have the pin holding this hem about the width we want it to be. Stop, needle down, lift the presser foot, pull the pin out, and then feed into the curl. This is another reason you don't want the starch too thick, too stiff, because you see what happens. If it's way too stiff, it has trouble going into the curl. But all you have to do is soften it with your fingers, okay? Now, all right, we're just on a straight stitch now. If you use fine thread and matching color, most of the time you'd never have to take this out, but it is basically a basting stitch because it's the pin stitch that we need. So we're watching here to make sure the cut edge stays right where we want it, just going down. And you see it's up a little bit because it's stiff, so I'm pushing it down. You just make it do what you want it to do. An editor once said, you have so much success with narrow hemmers because you just show them who's boss. So that's why I say, teach your narrow hemmers, you're the boss. See, at the end here, it wants to spit out and I don't let it. Okay, so then we're gonna cut. Okay, we've changed to just a basic applique pressure fit that is grooved underneath so that narrow hem goes through, and we're gonna align it ourselves where we want it to be for the pin stitch on the hem. I'll show you that. And we've put on a 120 universal needle. I don't like to use a wing needle for this, and we can get closer to the hem with this needle. And then it's probably going to be a length of about 2.5, and the width will vary with how you want to align. Again, I'm using a contrasting thread so you can see, but you will be using a matching thread when you do it for a project. Well, I said matching, but on the ruffle for that bib, it was a pink stitch. So it goes back and forth and swings over. So we want to go back and forth right next to the hem and then swing over and catch the hem. And so I'm going to find something to use as a guide. That red line works real well if I can align it with the edge of the first hem, you know, the narrow hem already made. But I would do a little practice piece first and then look at it, because I think I would like this a little bit longer. I had it on 2.5. It'll vary with the project and the weight of the fabric. This is like a medium weight linen, and I think I would like it a little longer. And if the holes aren't really being pulled open, don't be afraid to change tension. If you were pulling holes open by a hand stitch, you would pull harder. And it's starched, so you can pull a little bit to get the holes open without getting puckering. Okay, so remember, I'm watching the edge of the hem align with the center of the foot. I'm just going to go a little more and then stop. Okay, that's enough to tell for our... So, see how it aligns? That's where I stopped and changed the stitch length. It shows with the light, but the dark color doesn't usually show holes very well if you don't have light behind it, so, or a real light color. So that's why I really would like, this is how we usually would do it, a lighter color to get the look of a handkerchief edge with the pin stitch. So I hope you learned some things that'll help you be successful with your narrow hemmers. And then I just showed you a fun thing you can do to get a real elegant finish, and that's combining narrow hemming with the pin stitch to get open holes along whatever project you're doing. Thank you for joining me to learn how to put narrow hemming and the pin stitch together to make a beautiful handkerchief edge finish for your garments and other projects too. I hope you'll give it a try and have fun with it.